Hi, everybody. Well, we just got our first report from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch on the Spirit of Discovery, a Saga-owned cruise ship, who last year in November got caught in a storm, and it was a horrific scene. Let's just put it that way. It was stuck in this storm, lost power numerous times. Tragically, a passenger passed away. 8 passengers were brought to hospital and over 100 passengers were injured. And the first report has come out and I still have some questions. So in the first initial reports coming out from this incident, it happened on the Spirit of Discovery November 4th, 2023, and the report has just come out this week. It is from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, and it describes how the ship was sailing in the Canary Islands and couldn't go into one port because of inclement weather and decided it was going to head back to the UK. And on the way back to the UK in the Bay of Biscay, it hit a strong force 11 winds, basically a storm in the Bay of Biscay with about 64 mile-an-hour winds and anywhere from 25 to 30 foot waves. Now, the Spirit of Discovery is not a huge cruise ship. It's a luxury cruise ship, small cruise ship, and so 30-foot waves affect it much differently than it would, say, the Icon of the Seas, for instance. But what was happening around 12:30, the ship lost propulsion, lost all control, no engines, which caused the ship to violently veer to the left and was basically being thrown around while the crew restarted its engines. The report goes on to say, the propulsion issues, the storm force conditions, and the motions continued until the following morning, over 12 hours, where the Spirit of Discovery is finally able to continue its passage. Passengers have reported that the ship basically stayed in position, unable to go forward, back, anywhere, barely moving, just fighting the waves and the winds for the whole night. They said the captain came on the intercom, basically told everyone to sit down or lie down and hang on because they were basically in trouble. And it's not something you ever want to hear on your cruise. That is a lot of people who have fear of the ocean, etc. That's their big fear, right? Is being stuck in a storm on a ship, rocking back and forth. It is everyone's biggest fear of being out there. Well, the investigation has considered, they said, all aspects of this accident to determine the causes and circumstances of the Spirit of Discovery's loss of propulsion in the heavy weather and the onboard response, as well as including analysis of the vessel's intended passage, preparations for operating in heavy weather, the onboard response to passenger injury and damages, and the medical treatment of injured passengers on board, the statement said. And of course, Saga Cruise Line has come out and said, our thoughts and deepest sympathies remain with the family of our guests who died following the storm of Biscay last year. That's right, one of the 8 passengers who were rushed to hospital actually died of their injuries from this battered around on this cruise ship. They also say they are continuing to work with the Marine Accident Investigation Branch and supporting their investigation. But you'll notice there's a lot missing in this report. They say they're analyzing all these different things, but we haven't been told if any of these things were done incorrectly. For instance, why was the ship sailing into the bay if they knew there was a storm there? Was it only the loss of propulsion that caused the trouble? Because once they started their engines, they were still having problems continuing. So I have a lot of questions, and yes, they're looking at how they handled the injuries, how they responded to people on board with their injuries and the ship being sick. That's all well and good, but I think one of the main questions that need to be answered in a situation like this is, why was the ship sailing into a storm in the first place? Or was this possibly one of those storms that, the freak storm that just built up like they can in some places within hours, and they weren't expected to be as strong as it was? There's no word of the storm itself and how long it was running, what the strength of the storm was when the ship started heading in that direction. Was it just built up all of a sudden? Were they caught off guard? Did they make a poor decision to sail into the storm? These are all questions that still need to be answered, and we haven't heard anything so far. Passengers again have brought out and said, that was their most terrifying. They literally thought, this is how it ends. I've had a good life, and I'm on a luxury cruise ship of all places, and this is where it all ends for me. These are the kind of thoughts that were going through passengers' minds, and I imagine even some of the crew members who were on board as well. When a ship gets rocked and has propulsion issues and you're in the middle of a storm and you're on a small ship, you can't help but think of possibly this might be the worst case scenario going forward. Luckily, the ship was able to fight through the storm as it passed by and then continue the next day. But again, 100 passengers were injured. You do not hear of that very often in any kind of storm. You might hear, a half a dozen people might have tripped or, sprained their wrist or ankle when something happened when a wave hit. But you never really hear of that many passengers being injured in a storm on a cruise ship, unless something terribly, terribly went wrong. And again, I think the biggest question is not what did they do after the fact, but possibly what did they do before the fact. Should they have set sail? Were their storm preparations ready? Was the storm in full-blown force when they decided to head into it? Why did they not try and go around it? Who made the decisions? Was it the captain? Was it the company? Eventually, it all comes down to the captain. The captain always has final word. But as you know, in any job, when somebody puts pressure on you from your bosses, etc., sometimes you listen to them. But normally these things are really thought out, and most cruise ships do not sail into a storm. I just came back from the Sun Princess. There was a hurricane all the way that we were tracking all the way there, and we avoided it completely. And that kind of wonders why this ship ended up caught in this storm in the very, very first place. Well, let me know in the comments down below. Do you think this report is hiding some stuff yet? There's still a lot more to come out, or do you think they should never have sailed? Do you think it was a freak accident? What do you guys think? I find it very strange that there was no mention yet of why or how strong that storm was before the ship even set sail.